speakers and guests. This is a tale of triumph, not through accounts of military might or strategy, but football stories of passion, prejudice, persistence and justice. In Mons, Belgium, where it is said the fight between the Germans and the British forces started and ended in World War I, a different battle raged in the 1980s. It was in our house, over the TV. My mother, my sister and myself couldn't see the point of watching men running back and forth across a stretch of grass no bigger than a football field in a hope a player would make contact with the ball at the right angle for it to reach a dead end in the net. Despite the score of 3 to us and 1 to my father, we usually lost. What baffled me more than the game itself, or why we lost despite being in the majority, is that when my grandmother came to visit, she wanted to watch the football. So we lost 3 to 1. In 1991, my weekly school trip to the swimming pool was cancelled due to mechanical problems with the van. My only option to get some exercise was to join the football team. I got to play in a mixed match on a pitch that had an old oak tree within its boundary. The tree turned into my ally. It enabled me to sneak up on my opponent, get my feet on the ball, run towards the goal. But I couldn't score. It was then I appreciated some of the skills of the game and to some degree my grandmother's interests. It turns out you do have to be in somebody else's football boots to understand them. As I said, in 1914, across the fields of Mons and in France, World War I was playing out. Yet, on the 25th of December, teams were established for a football match on the frozen mud of no man's land. This would become known as the Christmas Truce. The score on the day was said to be Germans 3, British forces 2. But the results on the battlefield were yet to be decided. The Germans may have won the match, but we now know they lost the war, and the outcome was disastrous for all. At the same time, across the channel, women stepped into men's shoes in the factories that powered the war efforts. These munitionettes, as they were known, worked grueling, dangerous shifts. To boost morale, keep them fit, and raise funds for wartime charities, factories sponsored women's football teams. These munitionettes, as they were known, worked grueling, dangerous shifts. On the 7th of August, 1917, the Sporting Man newspaper ironically reported, I quote, "Yesterday at the University Ground, Durham, thousands of people, including the mayor, witnessed a match in which the team consisted of female munition workers from Swindon and Hartlepool. The match was an exciting affair, and many of the women showed remarkable ability. The score, 3 goals to 2. This match was likely to be for the Munitionette Cup, and one of the 2 goals for Hartlepool was scored by my grandmother. That really explained her passion for the game. These matches were no amateur pastime. On Boxing Day 1920, 53,000 spectators packed into Goodison Park. 14,000 more were locked outside. These matches raised enormous funds for wartime charities, for their war wounded and their families. Their success was both popular and patriotic. The score in these matches don't really matter, because the real battle would be fought after the end of the war and go on for 50 years. My grandmother, like so many other women, could not improve her skills because on the 5th of December 1921, the Football Association delivered a devastating blow. The FA Council declared, I quote, "The game is quite unsuitable for females and ought not to be encouraged." They banned women's football from any FA-affiliated grounds. Why? Because the Football Association was a male-dominated institution that could not stand the success of a game it did not govern. This was a direct threat to the financial and cultural dominance of men's football, because women's teams were drawing crowds that in some times exceeded that of the men's games. The ban was an act of jealousy and control. For the next 50 years, women's football was forced underground. Without official recognition, they were starved of media attention, proper facilities and funding. A generation of female talent was denied the opportunity to play the game, or like me, made to believe it was not for us. However, women who loved the sport refused to accept their fate. They formed their own leagues and in 1969 established the WFA to govern the game independently. The ban was finally lifted from the FA in 1971. The WFA ran the sport until they had an inaugural World Cup that took place in 1991, the year I played. In 1993, the FA finally took control of the women's game. Just as the Christmas truce was not the end of the war, the battle for women's rights, that women now playing football, is not the end of the battle for women's rights. On the battlefield, the hearts of the soldiers bled for the freedom of their country. At home still today, on and off the pitch, women's hearts bleed for recognition, justice and equality.